Mr. Tim Pierce, please give him a round of applause.
Okay, so I have an award that means a lot to me, but it's not for me. It means a lot to me because the man I'm giving it to is basically family, but I'll get to that in a second. The first thing I want to talk about is Ross Hogarth's kind of all of his huge eras of his career, and it's basically you just keep dropping names, and I wrote a lot of it down because I didn't realize how much of it there was. I sort of did, but Ross started out as a sound engineer for Jackson Browne, David Lindley, Fleetwood Mac, Little Feat, and Ry Cooder. Now think about that. Think about the guy who produces your record in this day and age. Think about him starting with that, and the dues he paid and what he learned. And then I first started to hear about Ross in the 80s, and it was still huge stuff. It was Motley Crue, it was John Mellencamp, it was REM. I remember working on a Melissa Etheridge song, and Ross was engineering, he wasn't producing, and I thought, this is probably the greatest drum sound I've ever heard. No kidding. So then Ross starts producing. He was producing all along, but I don't know if a lot of you know this, but he did Van Halen's latest record, The Reunion with David Lee Roth. He brought it across the finish line, he mixed it, he co-produced it, and it was not an easy thing. I was getting a play-by-play back then. He cares for everybody he works with, and he gives his all for every single person, whether they're huge or whether they're completely unknown. Now, as a guitar geek, I mean, he's produced and mixed and engineered for Robin Ford, Larry Carlton, Steve Lukather, and lately he's been doing Edgar Winter. Edgar Winter's doing a tribute to Johnny Winter, so Ross has been recording all these guitar stars, a couple of them are here, and I've been able to play rhythm on it because Ross comes over. In fact, Ross, the microphones at my studio are set up by Ross, which he did for free, and they're not moving because he's so good at every detail, everything he does. Lastly, he keeps winning Grammys. I knew he won Grammys in the 90s with Kev Moe and Quincy Jones, but he won a Grammy in 2018 for a duet between Ziggy Marley and Kev Moe. And it's kind of annoying, somebody who just keeps winning Grammys. So that's the name dropping part of it. Who Ross is, he is someone who will bend over backwards. He'll give too much to you. He'll give his whole heart and soul to you. He'll give you his time. He'll give you his honesty. And it's never about money. It's never about what he's going to get out of it. It's always about you and your artistry. And it's the total honest truth with him. He's a friend. He's family at this point. So no one deserves this award more than Ross.
Wow, you guys are still here, or people are still here. I told Sandy that actually I should be last because as the engineer or roadie, I'm always the first one there and the last to leave. So I said, you should really make me last. It would make me kind of feel better. So first I'd like to thank my dear friend and maestro Tim Pierce for such a kind and generous introduction. I'm almost speechless. I'm deeply grateful for Tim, I'm deeply grateful for your friendship, and for that's well over 30 years. I want to thank Robbie Jacobs, if he's still here, for putting me up for this, and the Rock Gods Hall of Fame for inducting me and honoring me. I had to write something down because I'd never remember it. I want to take a moment right now to honor a couple of our brothers that passed away in this last week. We lost our fearless leader in audio, Ed Cherney. He left us on Tuesday. I personally, 2 years ago, lost my brother on Wednesday was the 2-year anniversary, so now it's sort of back-to-back. It's going to be losing Ed and then my brother. And then yesterday, and Ed was one of the greatest human beings I've ever known, besides being an incredible engineer. And I'd like to also honor Paul Barrere of Little Feat, who passed away yesterday. Paul was a really close friend of mine since the late 70s, and I met him with Little Feat, and he was a neighbor in the valley. Our kids went to school together. We were a very close-knit family here And losing guys like that leaves a huge hole in our hearts and in what we do and who we are. So God bless them. I'd like to congratulate the abundance of riches that I am part of and somehow so honored to be a part of here tonight. I so respect this whole gang. Actually, I got to step back for a moment. Many of the guys here tonight that were honored have been incredibly influential in my life, and from the very beginning all the way to today. I mean, I wouldn't be up here today if not for these guys. I was setting up Jim Keltner's drum kit for Ry Cooter way back with Ry and Sessions and many other bands. When I was a roadie, we also produced the Zydeco record in the mid '80s in Jackson Brown's studio together, which was a super highlight. So Jimmy Lee, wherever you are, if you haven't left, I love you. I was on the same stage tuning David Lindley's guitars as his guitar tech with Glob and then Cooch, with their band, with the band, and in Sessions, and then later with Cooch I did records. So and Bob plays on many of the records that I make today, and I consider Bob one of the best and most supportive people in my life and a dear friend. So Globby, if you're still here, I love you. And I ended up engineering for Cooch in the mid '80s, and we're still super tight today. And I know Cooch is in New York tonight, as we saw, but I love Cooch. When you cut records in the '80s, one of the people I was making records with at a studio called Rumbo, which was owned by the Captain Tennille, Richie Zito, who's I think still sitting over here. I can't see because of the lights, but Richie and I have been laughing all night long. So Richie took me out of Rumbo and introduced me to Giorgio Moroder, who I ended up engineering a bunch of stuff for years. And that introduction, he trusted me to hand me off to someone who was very important to him, and so I ended up working on countless records with Giorgio, and so mad respect, and I love you, Zeeks, man. And then Brent Tuggle, Tugs, I love you, dude. These are the guys. I mean, I get to record these guys. I get to work with these guys. I mean, I'm like Zelig. I feel like I shouldn't even be here. So I love you, Tugs. And then Greg Lease, who's going to be inducted. I don't think he came tonight. And JR is out of town. And Jeff Boba. All these maestros. And I want to give a special shout out to a guy who's not here, who he kind of put me in a road case and took me around with him doing his drum sounds, Kenny Aronoff. And referred to me to more gigs than I can ever mention. And what an abundance of riches. And so I'd like to thank my wife, Chris, and my family. Emotional. Chris and I have been together from the very beginning. 40 years ago, we married 33. She's put up with my lifestyle either as a roadie or an engineer-producer. It's not an easy lifestyle to put up with. You know, on all rock and roll tickets, it says subject to, I didn't mention Biss. Biss and Ed, I love you. Phil Chen. So on rock and roll tickets, it says subject to change without notice. And so she's had to put up with my insane schedule, moving target projects. And, the one thing that we all know is change is the only thing we can count on. So she's the constant that allows for constant change. Couldn't have done it without you. So just to finish up, service, the last thing I think that stand out in principle for me and all my choices in life has been service. I believe we're all here, what we do, we're all here because we believe in service and a higher good. People like Kevin Dugan, who's standing next to me over here. Service and serving musicians, serving them on the road, serving them in the studios. On the road, we serve them, we serve musicians so they play the best show for you guys. In the studio, I serve musicians to play the best they can be so that we can serve the song and ultimately deliver what you guys hear. So I know all the musicians and everyone on the stage, they do the same thing, whether it's consciously or not. We won't talk about the unconscious part of that. That's for the past. We're now, I think, a little more present as we get older. So thanks for allowing me to pause tonight in gratitude for something that I tend to take for granted. I just do what I do, and I do it because I love it. I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I ended up where I needed to be. So here I am. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Much love and respect to everybody, and I really can't say enough.